everyone's excited. I am, certainly. Right. So are you interested in migrating your SQL Server instances over to the cloud, but not sure how to get started? Well, in the right place. In the next hour, I will share with you the essentials, the basics, and also take you step by step how to migrate your Amazon, how to create your Amazon RDS for SQL Server instance, and also migrate a small simple database using the native backup and restore steps. Okay. I'm JP Chen from Datavail. I'm the Senior Director of the SQL Server practice. I'm really fortunate to have the privilege to work with 200 plus SQL Server DBAs in the US and India, supporting 250 customers SQL Server environments ranging from small to enterprise sizes. Our team and I can help you in designing high availability solutions, migrate your environment from on-premises to the cloud, and also resolving complex performance issues. Even if you have 0 or 25 SQL Server DBAs, or if you have 1 or 1,000 plus SQL Server instances, our team and I can definitely work with you in supporting your SQL Server environment 24/7, maximizing uptime, and of course, minimizing downtime and call outs as well. All right, just quickly about Datavail, what we do. Promise I'm going to keep this really short. Okay, we are one of the biggest database service providers in North America. In addition to SQL Server, we also support other database platforms such as Amazon Aurora, MySQL, PostgreSQL, MongoDB, DB2, and Oracle. We have been in business for the past 16 plus years, 8 plus years of cloud support, and also our team consists of 100 plus cloud essays and engineers. With that, of course, comes with some of the positive outcomes. We have 700 plus customers, 200,000 plus databases managed, and also 150 plus successful cloud migrations. We are also an AWS partner. In the past few years, we have achieved and maintained the advanced consulting partner status with AWS. Right, really exciting here. So we have a survey. Okay, you will get the opportunity to win these cool speakers here. And in addition, right, like we pointed out here, for completing the survey, you will have a chance to win a $500 gift certificate from Check Validate. Okay, again, the link is here. Okay. We will also post it at the end of the presentation, and also we absolutely want to make sure that you guys will have access to this link. Okay, again, these are really cool speakers here, and the $500 gift certificate. Right, the agenda for today's presentation is, as you can see here, we're going to briefly go over what is RDS for SQL Server and provide a brief overview on the AWS Regions, AZs, Availability Zones, S3 and IAM. We also will go over planning your Amazon RDS for SQL Server instance and create an instance and connect to your instance. And also migrate a small sample database over to Amazon RDS for SQL, and briefly go over the DBA responsibilities in the cloud. Right? Some critical items to highlight here. Please note that this is an introductory session. You can think of it as 100 to 200 level. Right? It's a most basic and an introduction to RDS. Right? Again, 100 to 200 level, right? It's to get you started with Amazon RDS for SQL Server. We will include links and URLs for further reading, right? We will work on more presentations in later days to cover more in-depth contents. Right? We do know that this is only the most basics here. Okay, right? In terms of Q&A, if you do have a question, please do type it in the chat window, right? So We also have our DBA, right? So you're from our SQL team, from Datavail, also will help with some questions, right? Because I'm not going to be able to see the questions while doing the presentation, and we only have 1 hour, right? So we need to move very quickly. However, right, we do understand that we're going to go over them, some of the questions, when we have time, right, at the end of the presentation. And again, you can post your questions or type them out, and we will absolutely hope to help answer them. Right. And of course, no one knows everything about the cloud or migration to the cloud, right? And things are changing, evolving, right? Of course, and also life is all about live and learn, right? If you ask something really interesting, it's my way of saying that in case you ask something that I do not know, we will definitely find out and get back to you, right? We have a big team, 200 plus SQL Server DBAs, and one of our team members definitely would have had the experience that you may have questions on, right? We may have some solutions and get back to you. Okay, with that being said, let's define exactly what's Amazon RDS for SQL Server, right? Right. Amazon RDS is a platform as a service. If you see these acronyms, PaaS, PaaS, right, this platform as a service. It's offered by AWS, Amazon Web Services. It's also a database as a service, DBAS, right? Of course, not to confuse with IaaS, infrastructure as a service. Okay, right. It's also Amazon RDS is a managed cloud service. What exactly does it mean, right? It means that there's no, you as a DBA, you're not going to have like sysadmin privileges to the instance, right? This works really different, okay? And also you will not have operating system access, right? There will be no OS access. With these limitations, then you'll be asking, why would I use it then? What you will see within this presentation, you're going to see the benefits such as speed of provisioning. We can provision the instance rather than waiting for Windows admins to create a Windows server, and then you can install SQL and then configure databases. Within an hour, we can get all this done, right? Of course, in addition to that, you're going to have automation. The benefits include like automation of HADR and many other automated maintenance tasks. Okay? And very importantly, it will increase efficiency of resources. Right? Of course, the most important resource is human resources. And that implies many of the manual steps, right, that you used to do is you will get automated. On this screen here, you will also see a comparison between on-premises. This is your own data center, right? And also infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. Okay, the lighter green means that these are your responsibilities. Okay. However, when you migrate to infrastructure as a service, to a cloud vendor that you choose to use the absolute infrastructure as a service, and the cloud provider will be responsible for these darker greens here, okay? Server, storage, network, and virtualization, they will be responsible. And you will be responsible for the OS, middleware, runtime, apps, and data. If we're going to select platform service, your responsibility will only be data and app. Right? The cloud vendor will support everything else. Okay, and again today, RDS for SQL Server is considered as a platform as a service. Okay, you will not, from a DBA perspective, you will not have access to the OS. Of course, many other things listed here, right? So storage, networking, virtualization. Right. First of all, let's go over exactly what's a region. Okay. Before I do that, I have a funny question. Right. Let's make believe, like, if you migrate your databases to the cloud, will they be exposed to the rain, snow, and other weather elements? actually had this question. People actually ask me this question, right? Because they are not DBAs and they are not technical, right? So the answer is no. Okay, this is because the databases will be in the state of art AWS data centers. It's not actually up in the cloud. Okay, it's in someone else's data center. In this case, in AWS data centers, right? That's the state of art AWS data centers. To achieve fault tolerance and high availability, AWS has data centers in different regions throughout the globe. Okay, right? As we see a map here, a region. You can think of a region as a cluster of data centers. They are nothing more than physical locations isolated from others, right, to achieve the greatest possible fault tolerance and stability. In case one region, just in case one data center is impacted within a region, there are other data centers. Okay. Most of the AWS services are region scope. Okay. As of May 2021, just last week when I was preparing for this presentation, there were 25 regions. Of course, the blue dots you see on the map here are the ones that are available. The orange ones mean that it's coming soon. Okay. Again, blue, these are already available. Orange, they are coming soon. All right, let's move on to availability zones. Availability zones is one or more data centers with redundant power, networking, and connectivity. And of course, they are separate from each other to isolate and protect themselves from disasters. Right? Each region can have 2 to 6 AZs. AZs availability zones. Okay, 2 to 6 AZs. Right? They usually will come in the format of US East -2A. Of course, if you're in the West, then you replace the E or W, right? And then B, C, and so on and so forth, right? Some regions, they may have less AZs, availability zones, than the other ones. Generally speaking, you will get 2 to 6 AZs per region. Okay. Again, when I was preparing for this presentation, just to expect, and there were 80 AZs in the 25 regions as of May 2021. Let's go over to the next item. These are items that we need to know before we actually start the migration. Okay, S3, right? So you can think of a S3, I pointed out here, just basically storage for the cloud. Okay, similar to your hard drive as a storage for your laptop or desktop. S3, that's Amazon Symbol Storage Sources, S3. You see the 3 here. You see 1, 2, 3, S3. Right, Symbol Storage Sources. Okay, the storage for the cloud. You will store, objects and files in buckets. Right. So rather than the term folders that we usually say when we interacting with our desktop or laptops, computers, and you need to is considered as buckets. Right? Just think of it as folders. Okay, buckets are defined at the regional level, right, and have a globally unique name. Okay? Yeah, so the name needs to be unique, meaning that if someone else already had that name, you cannot use it. You need to make sure it's unique, right? Add some numbers or other characters to it. Make sure it's totally different from another person that may already have the bucket. Okay. You can enable versioning and also encrypt your objects. Right? Versioning means that you have multiple copies, keep track of your changes. Right? And in this case, in our example, in our demo, we're going to upload our on-premises database backup to S3 as part of the migration. And once our RDS instance is complete provisioning, then we're going to restore it. Okay, we're going to Again, we're going to take a backup of our on-premise database, upload to the bucket, and then restore it to our cloud instance, the RDS for SQL instance, as part of the migration. Right. Another thing that we need to know is the IAM. Okay. It's quite critical that we know the basics about IAM, because we do need to create what we call a role a little bit later on and associate it in order for us to restore the backup. Okay. IAM is a big topic to discuss. However, in this case, we're going to briefly go over it, right? In this case, we have users, groups, and roles, right? Users, of course, nothing different than what we already know, the individuals. Groups just contain users by function, and roles just internal usage within AWS resources, right? If you worked on, if you have a system admin background, you already know the policies, right? The policies, generally speaking, define the permissions, okay? And of course, the best practices that you have been doing, right? To make sure, like, follow the principle of least privileges, okay? Meaning that don't grant the role or the users more permissions than necessary, right? Only grant them on needed basis to perform the job, okay? Right, like I pointed out earlier, so we're gonna, in this case, we need to create an IAM role and also grant access to the S3 bucket, because that's required to restore the database, right? Some of the questions that I have gotten in the past events that I have done is that how can we manage data archival? Well, with AWS S3, you can create something called lifecycle rules to move your data from S3 to Glacier, okay, for long-term data archivals, right? Right. So we're going to go do the planning here. Just 3, as you can see, part 1 of 3. And after the planning steps, we're going to go into a demo to do step-by-step how we actually do it, how we actually do the migration. Okay. Of course, in the art of the war, Sun Tzu said, every battle is won before it's ever fought. Okay. The same applies in provisioning Amazon RDS for SQL Server instance. It requires careful planning based on your business requirements and also objective prior to creating the instance. Right? In the next 3 slides, we will go over the instance type, storage, multi-AZ deployment, VPC, security group, parameter group, option groups in a high-level overview, and of course, you can further review each one of it on the URL that's listed on the PowerPoint here. Okay? There are critical options that you need to have answers prior to creating your RDS for SQL Server instance. Okay? The instance class type. Okay. Okay. The DB instance class type you need will depend on your processing power and memory requirements. You have different classes. Okay? You have the standard M class and memory optimized all class. And of course, now with the new ones, you have X and Z. And you have burst capable T class, and you're going to be able to find out more details here. We're not going to be able to cover everything during this presentation, just a brief overview, right? Before you do anything, you need to make sure you know exactly what you want, right? That's the instance class and the storage, right? There are different types of storage. You have GP, okay, that's general purpose SSD. And in the documentation, you may see something called GP2, right? That's general purpose, okay? Provision IOPS, that's good for production database workloads. Usually for your production, SQL Server production environment, you will usually choose this one, Provision IOPS. Of course, Medallic, that's a much slower ones, okay? The performance definitely will not be as high as the other 2, right? General purpose and Provision IOPS. Okay, you're gonna have be able to see more details here on this URL. All right, and the second part of the planning, we need to understand like the multi-AZ deployment. right? Of course, this will multi-AC deployment will provide increased availability, data durability, and also fault tolerance for DB instances in the event of database maintenance, either planned maintenance or unplanned service disruptions. Amazon RDS automatically fails over to the up-to-date secondary replica. And in the past years, you are prior to SQL Server 2016, and these options are only available for other platforms. However, with SQL Server Enterprise Edition 2016 SP2 Plus, you will have the option to do read replica. Okay. You're going to be able to find more details here on this URL. Right. The next one is VPC. Right. VPC just a virtual network that's logically isolate your virtual network in the AWS cloud. Okay. Amazon VPC lets you launch AWS resources such as Amazon RDS DB instance on Amazon EC2 instances into a VPC, right? The VPC can either be a default VPC that comes with your account, or the one that you can create. Okay, your default VPC has 3 different subnets you can use to isolate resources inside the VPC. The default VPC has an internet gateway that can be used to provide access to resources inside the VPC from the outside the VPC. And the next item is the security group. You can think of the security groups firewalls, right? By default, of course, or inbound traffic is blocked and all outbound traffic is open. Okay. And later on, we're going to configure the security group to open for port 1433 for us to connect, right? If it's not open, we're not going to be able to connect to it. Again, you're going to have to be able to see more details here. And finally, on port 3, you need to understand parameter groups and also option groups. Right? Parameter groups, we're not going to do any demo on parameter groups, but we will do a demo on option groups because this is required for us to restore a database. Right now, parameter groups, as we pointed out earlier, you're not going to have access to the operating system. In many of the things that you have done in the past, that you have, for example, the trace flags or other configurations, anything that you were doing using sp_config, you will need to configure your parameter groups for that. Okay, and you can find out more details here on this URL. Okay. An option group, okay. And these are options that specify how options works, right? When you associate a DB instance with an option group, the specified options settings enable, so the option settings are enabled for that DB instance. Well, you can think of this as a additional features to manage data and database options for SQL Server. Right? In this case, again, the native backup and restore, and options such as TDE, audit, SSAS, SSIS, and SSRS. Right? As of right now, it has limited options. Of course, AWS is making more changes. Right? In the future, you're going to be able to see, definitely be able to see more options. All right, so this is the checklist that we have here, right? So in the demo that we're going to do, we're going to select the standard edition, right? Again, this is a test, it's a demo, right? In production, it's going to be slightly different, right? And we're going to choose the latest version. And the template, while in production, we're going to choose dev and test. And we're going to name the instance, that's the name of the instance. Okay. And I'm going to leave the default admin username, but the password, you just select the correct, make sure you remember the password you choose, and also comply to the policies, to the password policies. And this is the instance class that I'm going to choose, which is the lowest class, okay? And also I'm going to choose the GP, the minimum storage, because database in this case is quite small. Multi-AC deployment, we're not going to use the multi-AC deployment here. Okay. And we're going to leave default VPC. We're going to open public access. Usually you don't do this in your production environment, right? You're going to have a different configuration option in your production environment. Right, security group, we're going to leave the default. And like we talked about this earlier, the parameter group by testing sp config. And option groups, we're going to need to configure the option group for backup and restore. Okay, make sure the option is selected, which we're going to cover a little bit later on. All right, let's do a demo here. Okay, in this case, we're going to create an instance. Okay, work the option that we have shown you right here on the slide, right? We're going to create a DB instance. Okay, again, so I want to show, before we create the instance, I want to show you that I have, this is my on-prem environment, right? My on-premises environment. So I have in one instance. Later on, I'm going to, upload the backup file to the S3 bucket. Okay, this is a really small database. We're going to upload it later on. Okay, right, let's create a instance. In this case, you're going to see how quickly we're going to get it created. Okay, so I'm on the management console. Right, I already logged on right to my AWS account. I'm going to create the RDS for SQL Server instance right now. Okay. Right. So to find it, you have multiple options to get there. You can either search for it, right? Or in this case, I'll click on the link. If you don't see it, you just type RDS, you will find it, right? Either way, you will get there. Okay. And I'm going to click on Create Database. Okay, I'm going to leave this default option here. Okay. Standard create, in this case, we are SQL DBAs. Right, so we're going to choose SQL Server. That because that's the one that we want to create in this presentation. Okay. Right, then we're going to choose the standard edition. We're going to choose the latest one. Again, as per our checklist, we are not using production here. We're doing demo. So we choose dev and test. In your production environment, of course, you choose production, right? And we can name it. Make sure we give it a name that's meaningful. Password, whatever you choose here, you must remember it, okay? Okay, default option. Okay. I pointed out in the checklist, we're going to leave the default here for the storage, okay? And storage auto scaling, in this case, I'm doing demo. And in the production environment, you want to leave this on. Same with multi-AZ. Okay? We're going to choose no in this case. In your production environment, make sure like you align it to your business requirements. Right, the VPC, we leave the default. Public access, in this case, we're going to choose yes. Okay. Right, very quickly, we will tell you, AWS will show you the estimated price per month. Okay, this is per month. This looks different than practice one I have done. That means that either I had select something different. Okay, just want to double check it. Right, so we're going to create database. Okay. As you can see, I have many instances. Okay. To find out the progress. Remember, that's why it's so important that we remember the name, right? In case you have many instances you have created for your environment, you need to remember the name. As you can see, right, that's the one that we had just created, so it's still in progress, right? This will take a couple of minutes, right? So while this is going, we're gonna move to the next slide here. All right, so we already got our instance created in progress. Usually, right? Usually you may have limited access, right? Remember, this is a database support, and creating databases usually is a team sport, right? You need to collaborate with your IT team, such as network team, storage team, right? And if you do not have full access, make sure you talk to your company's AWS solution architect and grant you the permission required to create databases. Okay. Right. Now we're going to upload, while the database is being created right now, we're going to upload the backup, okay, to a S3 bucket. We're going to create a bucket, okay, and then upload the backup to it. And we also will create the option group, RDS for SQL backup and restore. Okay. Because we must create this in order to perform the restore. In the same step, we're going to create the IAM role and grant write access to the Amazon S3 bucket. Okay, we're going to do another demo. And this time around, just to repeat, we're going to create a bucket to store the backup. Then upload the backup to the S3 bucket. And then create the option group, right, for backup and restore. And create a new IAM role and grant the access. Okay. This reminder, right? This is my on-prem. Prior to the presentation, I already ran a backup. It's a really small file. Okay. It's a really small file, right? Because we're doing demo here. We want to make sure it's like it goes through rather quickly. Okay. All right, just bear with me. I'm going to create a bucket right now. To create a bucket, I'm going to open a new tab here, and you can search for it. Just type S3. Okay. Just hit create bucket. Okay. And then give it a name, right? So it has to be globally unique, right? Meaning that no one else can have this name. If someone already took this name, you need to give it a different name. Okay. Region, choose the one that's close to you or close to your client or your business. Okay. Okay. All right. We're not going to go over the details on these options here because it can take a great amount of time to provide all the explanations. But however, right, you just need to remember to give it a name, knowing like where you put it, right? Okay, then you create a bucket. Okay, and you define the bucket you just created. That's the bucket we just created here. Okay, I just click on it. Now I'm going to upload it. I'm going to upload the backup file. Okay, I'm going to share with you where I have my backup file. Okay, so I have my backup file here. As you can see, it's on only 8 megabyte, 8.11 megabyte. So I'm going to, that's my laptop, right? So I'm going to upload it. Okay. Add the file. Right, and choose this one. That's the one I want. Okay, and then you just need to hit upload. Excuse me. Okay, so that's in progress. You should go do rather quickly. Done. Right, so you already have your backup file up in the cloud. Okay, we're going to restore it as part of the migration. We're going to store it up later on. Okay. Like I said earlier, after you upload the backup file, you also need to create an option group, right, to enable the backup and restore. And to do that, you need to find the option. Okay. Okay, go back into RDS. I want to keep these tabs open so we can look at the progress, and so make sure that's clear for everyone. Okay. Now the option group, I'm going to click on the option group. Again, you create an option group in the RDS page. Okay. Click on option groups, and you create a group. Okay, whatever name you put, you need to remember, right? So in this case, I do the same for description. No, you cannot skip the description. You will not allow you to create if you skip it. Okay, so you need to create, make sure, just put anything here, preferably something that makes sense to you, right? Now on the engine, very critically, because we had chose to use SE, right, standard edition. Make sure you select the correct one. Right, correct. In the correct version, right? You create an option group. After you create, you define it. Right? Remember, you just create a group. You need to add options to it. Okay, that's the one that we just created. Just click on it. And then you add the option. Okay, add option. And you need to add SQL Server backup and restore. If you skip this step, you will not be able to restore your database, right? Because it needs to have the permission to do that, right? As we talked about earlier, you need to create a role. Okay, in this case, I'm going to create a new role. Right, this one's fine. As we, right, it automatically show up because I went through a couple of practices. Okay, now the bucket is the one that you had created, right? RDS, as you can see, RDS for SQL demo, because that's the one we had created. And extremely important, you want to choose this option. You want to apply it right now. You do not want to wait until next week, until Monday. Okay, you need to do this now. Add the option. Okay, you should get complete rather quickly. Right, as you can see, it's already been complete. Right. Okay, right. If you want to double check it, just click on it again. You should be able to see. Right, back on restore options already added. Right, and there's the role here. Okay. Right. So in the past, when I've done similar presentations, I get questions such as, what if you have a big database? Let's say you have 50 terabytes instead of like 8 megabyte of database that I just uploaded. What if you have like 50 terabyte of data? You need to migrate to AWS. Okay. Please mute yourself, guys. Thank you. Okay. All right.
This is a person on the phone. Please mute your phone. I'm not able to mute you. Please mute your phone.
Okay. Yep. We have to move on.
If you don't mute, I will disconnect. Sorry.
Okay. Right. So if you, okay. Right, again, just to repeat, if you have 50 terabyte of data, if you need to migrate to AWS, right, in this case, obviously you should not just do a upload, right? You can send, you can request AWS to send you a 50 terabyte snowball, okay? It's called snowball, and it will cost you $200 per use, and you can keep it for 10 days. And you can move your data into this device called Snowball and ship it back to AWS. AWS then connect Snowball to your data center, and then you will have access to your data. Again, that's for 50 terabyte, many terabytes of migration, right? But in this case, we're just doing demo here, so we only have 8 megabyte. As you can see, it uploaded rather quickly, right? Right, so we complete these steps so far, okay? Right, so the next thing we're gonna do, we're going to modify this security group and enable our access so we can connect to it from our on-premises environment to the cloud instance. And yes, you can use SSMS to connect to it, right? And very quickly, you need to find the endpoint and the port number. And after that, you just need to open the SSMS and paste in the endpoint, put in the correct port number, of course, put a comma before the port number, and make sure you key in the correct password and connect. That would be it. We're going to do a demo right now. You're going to be amazed how quickly we can connect to it. Again, we're going to modify in this demo. We're going to modify security group to allow SQL port 1433. And then we're gonna show you how to find the port number, the endpoint and the port number, right, in the AWS console, and then we're gonna connect from our on-premises instance. Okay. All right, let's go back to RDS. Okay, so this is still being created right now. Okay, no problem. So as you can see, it's still trying to wrap up the process. So it's backing up the whole instance. Right, the endpoint, this is the endpoint that we were talking about. So in order to connect from your on-premises instance, you know the endpoint and the port number, right? In this case, we need to modify the firewall, right, the security group to enable the connection. Okay? So just click on security group there. Okay, once you're there, you'll need to click inbound, right? And then we're going to add a rule, MSQL, right? By default, that's the default port, right? In this case, again, we're doing demo. This is not the best practice. You want to restrict it, okay? You want to restrict to your range of IP or your specific IP, right? Then save. Okay, right, as you can see. So again, demo. I'm going to delete this instance right after the demo. Okay, if I go back to the instance, let's see if it's complete creating or not. So I'm back on the RDS console page, okay? And I want to double check, make sure it's complete, okay? Right, as you can see, did that take more than 10 minutes? No, right, it took less than 10 minutes to create an instance, okay? So I'm gonna copy the endpoint like we discussed earlier. We need to copy the endpoint. I'm gonna go to my on-premises instance, okay, which is already open. You just need to connect to it. Again, here, you paste in the endpoint and put a comma. And then you put the port number, 1433. SQL implementation, right? The password you had key in earlier. Okay, and hit connect. Right, as you can see, it's connected. Right, now we're going to restore the database. As part of the migration, we're going to restore a database. To restore a database, you need to find the exact path where you put your backup file in the S3 bucket. In order to do that, you need to find out the ARN, Amazon Resources name. Okay, let me go over that. Give me a second. All right, so we're going to migrate using backup and restore. Right? It's the fastest way to migrate database, to migrate small database. RDS supports native restore of database up to 16 terabyte. However, if you do have 16 terabyte, you should consider using some of the other device, such as I discussed earlier, Snowball, to ship the files over to AWS, right, rather than just doing the upload. And if your database can be offline, you use native backup and restore. Right? Also, you need to think about using DMS. We're not going to further discuss DMS here. It has many functionalities, such as migrating from heterogeneous databases, meaning that if you have MySQL, you want to convert it to SQL Server, you can use DMS to convert it for you. Right? We're not going to go in depth here because it's a very broad topic that requires many hours of discussion. All right, so in terms of the checklist, this is what we have done so far. Okay, all right, so we already back up, we already upload it, we already create an option group. So as for the next step, we're going to associate the option group with the instance, right? And then we're going to find the backup by using the ARN, and then restore a database. Okay, so we're going to do a demo here. Okay, so I am on, so very quickly, so in case you do not know where you are, you just need to see the path here. I'm in RDS database, and this is the database instance I'm actually on. Okay, and to associate the option group, click on the, give me a second, like that. Right, just go back to RDS and you hit modify. Right, any second now, okay. All right, so on the modify page, again, you need to associate, right? You need to associate the option groups right here in additional configurations. And that's the option group we created. Okay. You can leave the other ones default, right? These ones I do not need. I'm going to check them off, but in your production environment, you should leave them on. Okay. Right, just to double check. And I want to apply right now, not to wait until June 15th and modify. Okay. All right, so that's being modified. And the next thing we wanted to find out is the ARN, because that's where the path to identify where we store the backup file. I just need to create the backup file we had uploaded and find out the ARN. Okay, so this is the ARN. We're gonna need this path to restore it. Okay. All right, give me a second. So I'm gonna go to my instance, okay, and I'm going to get the script, okay, get the script to restore the database. Again, I'm connected to the RDS instance. And the script to restore, right, it looks very similar to your on-prem restore tsql. However, it does have some differences. As you can see, you have the name rather than just restore database, you have RDS _restore database. right? And you have to make sure you key in the correct ARN. To find your ARN, again, go to your page, your console, right? And go into your S3 bucket and the file, and you're going to be able to find the ARN here. Just copy. Now it's copied. And then you just need to key in the correct one. And then you would just need to execute. Okay. All right, so I expect this, and therefore I'm going to show you what it looks like after it's complete, right? Once it's complete, right, it will look like this. You get a restore, right? And then you can query your tables just as you would do on your on-premises environment. Okay, so that will look like. And there's something that there's a process may be enabled right now, so it takes a little time, right? But again, you will see it. This is what it's gonna look like when it's done completely, right? Okay, some of the questions that we usually get is that as we migrate database over to the cloud, many of our DBAs are asking, what are our new responsibilities, right? No worries, there's always plenty of work for us to do, right? The cloud automates many of the manual tasks and provide benefits of speed of provisioning, as you can see, right? And also increase the efficiency of resources. DBAs will continue to be in high demand as we need to focus on database tuning and also troubleshooting, right? So in the next two slices, you're gonna see that we have outlined some of the DBA responsibilities by category and also compare between IS and PaaS, right? In respect of time, we're going to go do this really quickly. You should be able to have access to the PowerPoint deck that we had used here. Right. One key thing I want all of us to remember that the cloud does not change the importance or the demand of DBAs. However, as DBAs, we need to keep pace of changes. As Charles Darwin once said, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It's the one that's most adaptable to change. The IT and database technologies are changing, they're evolving. As DBAs, we need to adapt to the new changes, not only to survive, but to thrive. Okay, I know we are really close to the hour, and I know you may have many questions, and in case, hopefully our panelists already help answer some of them. In case you have questions that may require further discussion, please do reach out to me, reach out to us, and we can schedule a meeting to discuss some of the questions you may have. Like I pointed out earlier, in case we do not have the answer yet, we definitely can get back to you, right? Because we have a really big team. And with that, we appreciate your time and thank you.
You guys try to post the questions in the chat. I don't know if unmuting all will help since I don't want everybody speaking at the same time. It could get confusing. So post your questions in the chat, and then if needed, I can unmute you. It was a great presentation, JP. Thank you very much. Really good place to start. Yeah, if you guys are unfamiliar with RDS, hopefully this gave you a good introduction to get comfortable and really start poking around. We have a thank you here, not a question yet. Yeah, start creating them, get set up, start create a free one. I believe it's T2 Micro, right, JP?
Right. Just follow my presentation. It has all the steps in there, and this is recorded, so the session's recorded, so you can look at it again and follow the steps.
One of the questions is, how is AWS compared to Azure? Are you able to answer that? I'm
Yes,
not familiar with Azure.
yes. I have another presentation also on introduction to Azure. So the migration steps slightly different, right? Slightly different. However, like when you say that the difference, it's also a cloud vendor, of course, right? They're competitors. So AWS, yes, we do know for a fact that it's many times bigger than Azure, right? In terms of people always ask me, customers always ask me, which one's better? I would say like there's no such things like which one's better, except which one's better for you, right? That's quite important. Okay. So in terms of they both have their pros and cons, of course, right? The best way to do it is to test them. And AWS has a credit, I believe, is you can do a free testing, and they give you I believe some credit to do free testing. The same goes for Azure, right? So I'm going to limit the discussion to comparison to Azure, but I do have another presentation for introduction to Azure, how to migrate over.
So there was a question, did you say for a person starting out to practice, he just went, sorry, I'm having trouble reading this. Did you say there was a way for a person starting out to practice what he just went over? Yes, there is. You can start a free tier.
Yes, you can start a free tier. That's correct. Thank you. Yeah, you can start a free tier in AWS. Just go to the AWS page. You're going to be able to find it and sign up for it. But you do need to sign up for it, right? To get the free tier, and it has limited time for you to do your testing.
Yeah, just do watch it and actually pay attention, because it's very easy to go over. So pay attention, stop your services when you need to, and so on. Yeah, someone just shared the page on the free tier, so please take a look. You really have to be very careful about that. Another question, do you recommend using PowerShell or any scripting language is okay? Do you see a need to also be familiar with Python, JP?
Right. It depends on what you need, right? If you are a developer, right? If you want to be a data scientist, excuse me, and Python is one of the language that you definitely need to get familiar with, right? It depends on the job function, right? So of course, like scripting language, that's for automation. Yes, you can automate it. You can do everything I just did by using a scripting language. You can do that.
You guys take a picture of the link if you're not going there immediately that JP is sharing right now. You can enter in the raffle and win some amazing prizes. Okay, last minute questions, anybody?
Right. I know Soyok just posts a URL there. That's how you get a free account. So just look at the URL he posts on the chat window there.
Yes. I know it kind of goes for all cloud services. I kind of caught myself trying to test out Azure, and even though it says free 1 month, depending on the services, depending on if you leave things running, do pay attention when you're testing out your free cloud services, so you don't end up with a crazy bill and a bad day.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, thank you, JP, very much. Great presentation. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and do try things out, and you learn by practicing. So create your RDS, destroy it, create it again, create your buckets. Just remember, I think the name is on the buckets, and I'm not sure if it's still the same. It's not just globally unique, it's like it's permanent, right?
No, you
So
can
even
delete
if
it. Right.
no, but you can delete it, but I think the name is still the name is still taken up. That was one thing, and it's been a couple of years since I used it. Do they reuse the name eventually now?
Yeah, you can reuse it.
Awesome. That drove me crazy.
Right. Meaning that if you delete it, as long as like no one's using that, you can use it.
Okay, yeah, once it syncs up, I think for most other things it was like that. Once it syncs up, it's not instant, so it takes a few minutes for it to kind of sync up, but once it syncs up, it's you should be able to reuse it then. Great. That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.